The first paper boat I ever sent down the creek carried a single sentence in my son's careful 9-year-old handwriting. Dear world, my name is Finn Caldwell, and I am going to live forever. He wrote it on the last good day, the afternoon before the leukemia came back for the final time. He was bald from chemo, thin as the reed he used to whistle with, but his eyes were bright, and he made me promise to fold the note into a boat and launch it the minute he fell asleep so the creek could carry his wish all the way to the Pacific Ocean. I did. L folded it the way he taught me, sharp creases, tight corners, the little trick with the bow so it wouldn't sink. I carried him to bed, kissed the soft place where his hair used to be, and when his breathing evened out, I walked behind our house in the rain and set that boat in the brown water rushing past the alder roots. I watched it spin once, catch the current, and disappear under the footbridge. That was 7 years ago. 7 years of folding. 7 years of walking to the creek bank after dark with another letter he never got to finish. 7 years of whispering the same thing every time the paper touched water. Please bring him back, or at least bring me to him. I kept every letter he ever started. The ones on the back of grocery receipts, the ones in the margins of his comic books, the ones he wrote when the pain was so bad he couldn't speak and the nurses let him use the whiteboard instead. I kept them in a cedar box under my bed, and every full moon I took one out, folded it into a perfect boat, and gave it to the creek people in town thought I'd lost my mind. Gentle, worried smiles when they saw me on the bank in my nightgown and rain boots. The pastor tried to organize an intervention once. I let him talk for 10 minutes, and then asked if Jesus ever gave anything back once he took it. The intervention ended early. I didn't care what they thought. The creek was the only thing that still listened. Until yesterday. Yesterday, the creek brought something home. Was in the kitchen at dawn, making coffee I wouldn't taste, when I heard the softest knock on the back door. Not a real knock, more like something brushing wood. I opened it, expecting the neighbor's cat or a raccoon looking for scraps. Instead, there were paper boats. Hundreds of them. They covered the porch steps, the path, the grass all the way to the water. Every single one L had ever sent returned by the flood that came after 3 days of rain. They were soaked, soft, beginning to unfurl, but still boats, still holding their shape the way grief holds its shape long after everything else has collapsed. And in the middle of them stood a man. He was tall, soaked to the bone, bearded like someone who had forgotten mirrors exist. His coat was Forest Service green, turned almost black with wet, and his hands, Lord, his hands, were cradling the very first boat I ever sent, the one that said Finn was going to live forever. He looked up when the door opened. His eyes were the color of river stones after rain. "I'm sorry," he said, voice rough from disuse. "I tried to get them all here before they fell apart." Couldn't speak, my knees gave out, and I sat down hard on the threshold, right in the middle of all those soft returning wishes. He crouched in front of me, careful not to crush any boats, and set Finn's first one gently in my lap like it was made of glass. "I find them," he said. "Every single one. I've been finding them for 6 years. Looked at the boat in my hands. The ink had run, but I could still read forever. I dry them," he went on, quieter. "I keep them safe. I answer them when I can. I never knew where to bring the answers until the creek decided for me." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside were hundreds of tiny drawings. Pencil, charcoal, watercolor the size of postage stamps. Each one was a response to something Finn had written. A whale for the letter that asked if the ocean was big enough to hold all the stars. A treehouse with a tire swing for the one that said he wanted to live in the woods when he grew up. A boy with a full head of hair flying a kite shaped like a dragon for the letter that said, "Chemo wasn't fair." Elle touched the drawings with fingers that hadn't stopped shaking since the day they told me the cancer was back. "What's your name?" I managed. "Elias," he said. "Elias Rowan. I lost someone too. My wife. Same hospital, same floor? Different year?" He didn't say anything else for a long time. He just sat there in the wet with me while the sun came up and turned every paper boat the color of weak tea. Eventually, I asked the only question that mattered. "Did you ever draw one that says he's okay, wherever he is?" Elias opened the box again and took out the newest drawing, done on heavy paper that hadn't been in the water. It was Finn at maybe 15, tall and healthy, standing on a creek bank exactly like ours, waving at someone just out of frame. Behind him, the water was full of paper boats, all sailing upstream. On the back, in careful block letters, "He's waiting for you to stop looking downstream, Mom. The current goes both ways when you love someone enough." I started crying so hard I couldn't see. Elias didn't try to fix it. He just moved the boats aside, sat next to me on the step, and let me cry against his shoulder that smelled like rain and wood smoke and library books. We stayed like that until the paper boats began to dissolve into the porch boards, until the drawings were the only things left. Then he helped me carry the cedar box and his wooden one inside. He made tea while I sat at the kitchen table and read every answer he had ever sent my son. When Elle looked up, hours later, he was watching me with the gentlest expression I have ever seen on a human face. "I don't want to leave," he said, like it was a confession. "But I will if you need me to." Elle thought about the creek still running behind the house, carrying nothing now except sunrise and birdsong. Elle thought about how heavy the cedar box had felt for 7 years and how light it felt with someone else's hands helping carry it. I reached across the table and took the drawing of Finn waving. "Stay," I said. My voice cracked, but it didn't break. "Stay and help me build a bridge over the creek, one strong enough for boats to come back on their own." He smiled then, small, careful, like someone who hadn't used the muscle in years. And for the first time since Finn fell asleep that night and never woke up again, I smiled back. We started the bridge in April. Simple thing. Cedar planks, rope railings, just wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side. Elias drew the plans on the back of one of Finn's old letters. I supplied the lumber from the shed where my husband used to keep tools he never had time to use. Every day we worked, the creek kept talking underneath us. Softer now, like it had done its job and could rest. Some evenings we sat on the half-finished bridge with our feet in the water and read the letters out loud. Finn's words, Elias's answers, my shaking voice filling in the gaps. On the first day of summer, the bridge was done. We painted the railing the exact blue of Finn's favorite hoodie and hung a small sign in the middle that said, "For going there and for coming home." That night, the moon was full and low, the color of warm cream. Elias brought a new piece of paper, heavy creamy stock, the kind artists use. He handed me the pencil. "Your turn," he said. Elle thought for a long time. Then I wrote a single line in the middle of the page. "Dear Finn." Stopped looking downstream. "Love, Mom." We folded it together, slow, perfect creases, into the most beautiful boat either of us had ever made. When we set it on the water, it didn't rush away. It floated for a moment under the bridge, catching moonlight like it was waiting for permission. Then it turned, slowly, deliberately, and sailed upstream, toward the mountains, toward wherever forever begins. Elias took my hand. His fingers were warm, calloused, steady. We stood on our bridge and watched the boat disappear around the bend where the alders grow thick and secret. And for the first time in 7 years, I didn't whisper, "Please come back." I whispered, "Thank you for coming home." The creek carried the message for us. And somewhere, I know a boy with a full head of hair caught it, unfolded it, and smiled the way he did the day he told the world he was going to live forever. Because some promises aren't broken. They just take the long way around. I kept waiting for the day the creek would stop talking to me altogether. Thought once the bridge was finished and the last boat had sailed upstream, the water would go quiet and leave me with nothing but ordinary grief and the ordinary man who now fell asleep beside me every night, with one hand curled protectively over the small of my back, like he was still afraid I might float away. But the creek never went quiet. It just changed its voice. Some mornings I'd wake to find a single perfect alder leaf on the kitchen table, edges kissed with frost even in July, placed there by Elias sometime before dawn. Some evenings the wind chimes we hung from the bridge would ring once, clear and deliberate, when there was no wind at all. Once in October, a paper boat came back downstream. Our boat, the one that said, "Els stopped looking downstream." It was dry, uncreased, carrying a new line in Finn's handwriting that hadn't been there before. "You built the bridge, Mom. Now walk across it sometimes." I cried so hard I had to sit on the floor. Elias found me there and didn't ask questions. He just wrapped me up and carried me to the bridge like I weighed nothing, set me on the middle plank, and held me while the sun went down and the water underneath us turned the color of the hoodie I still couldn't bring myself to wash. That winter was the first one I didn't dread. We left the Christmas lights up until February because neither of us wanted to climb the ladder in the snow. Spring came early that year. The trilliums bloomed under the cottonwoods like someone had scattered stars on the ground. Elle turned 40 the week the dogwoods opened. Elias woke me before sunrise and walked me to the bridge carrying a blanket and 2 mugs of coffee. When we got there, every inch of railing was covered in paper boats. Hundreds of them. Thousands, maybe. They were every color. Sun-bleached blues and greens and yellows that had never existed in my crayon box when Finn was alive. Each one held a single wildflower, violets, lupine, paintbrush, fireweed. Elias's eyes were red-rimmed. He hadn't slept. "I didn't do this," he whispered. "I swear I didn't." I knew he didn't. I stepped onto the bridge and the boats started moving on their own, lifting off the railing like birds, circling us once, twice, then settling gently into the water and sailing upstream in a perfect glowing line. We stood there until the last one disappeared around the bend. Then Elias got down on one knee in the middle of our bridge, right over the spot where the current is deepest and fastest, and pulled a small wooden box from his pocket. Cedar, same as the one that holds Finn's letters. Inside was a ring made from a silver spoon handle, bent into a circle, polished smooth and warm. Etched on the inside were 3 words in Finn's handwriting, copied from the last letter he ever wrote me when the morphine made his letters wobble. "Love never sinks." Said yes before he even asked the question. We got married on the bridge in June, barefoot, with only the creek and the cottonwoods as witnesses. I wore the same sundress I wore the day Finn learned to ride his bike without training wheels. Elias wore the flannel shirt he was wearing the first morning he showed up soaked and carrying my son's wishes. We didn't have vows. We just read Finn's letters out loud, all of them from the first to the last, while the water carried the sound of his voice downstream and upstream at the same time. Afterward, we scattered the rest of the paper boats into the current and watched them sail away together, a whole armada of love letters finally going wherever they were always meant to go. That night, we left the bedroom window open so we could hear the creek singing us to sleep. Sometime before dawn, I felt the mattress dip on Finn's old side of the bed, the side that had been empty for 7 years. Elle opened my eyes and saw the faintest outline of a boy sitting cross-legged at the foot of the bed, moonlight shining straight through him, smiling the way he did when he still had hair and a future. He didn't speak out loud. He just put his hand over his heart, then pointed at Elias's sleeping form curled around me, then pointed at the ring on my finger. Then he was gone. But the indentation stayed in the mattress for the rest of the summer, like the creek had decided some things are meant to stay pressed into the shape of love forever. Years have passed now. The bridge has needed new planks twice. The cottonwoods have grown so tall, their branches touch overhead and make a green tunnel in July. We never had more children. Some hollows are sacred, and we didn't want to fill Finn's space with anyone else. But every child in town knows they can come to the bridge if they're sad and leave a paper boat, and it will always come back with an answer. Elias still draws. I still fold. We still set 2 glasses of milk out on Sunday nights, and every full moon, without fail, a single perfect paper boat floats downstream and stops under the bridge just long enough for us to read the new line, "Someone, somewhere, has added in handwriting that never quite ages. I'm still living forever, Mom. Keep building bridges." We do. We always will. Because love, it turns out, doesn't need the creek to carry it anymore. It just needs 2 people willing to stand in the current together and keep folding the world into something small enough to hold. And that, God, that has been enough to keep us afloat for all the years the water keeps giving back. If you liked my story, you can support me by making a donation so I can write more stories. Thank you in advance. I would love to hear your opinion, so please share it with me in the comments. I'm always curious about what you all think, and also write me where you heard this story. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many other stories waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings.